how to use all these types inside of an actual program. We're going to declare variables of certain types and then try to print them on the screen. I'm going to show you how it's done with each of the types we covered so far. So the first example uses the character type. So the character, in this line here, we have character space letter. So we invented a brand new variable called letter, and we put the letter A in it. Remember, the letter A means single quotes around it. Always have single quotes around your characters and the semicolon at the end. So we made a brand new variable called letter and we put an A inside of it. Now in our program we have an A is called the variable letter, and we're going to use it in a sentence. When we use it in a sentence and we want to show this sentence on the screen, we're going to use the printf command, similar to the last exercise. So we start off with printf, and our sentence is going to read, I really like the letter %C /n, comma, letter. There's a lot of pieces here. Let me explain each one. So I really like the letter %C. This %C is almost like a fill in the blank. It's going to go ahead and say, whenever it sees a percent, it's going to say, hold on a minute, don't really print out that percent on the screen. Find out where this piece of information is coming from, and then substitute that percent letter with an actual number that goes there instead, or letter or value, whatever the variable has in it. So whenever it sees a percent, it doesn't actually write it in the screen. It's going to go look for some variable, take out its value, and show it in that position instead. So here I have something that says, I really like the letter %C, and so this creates a fill in the blank right here in this spot. So I really like the letter blank, and after the comma, this is the actual variable that goes in that spot. So I really like the letter blank, and it grabs whatever's inside of letter and it puts it in that blank. So I really like the letter, and whatever the value of letter is will show up next. We know from this line here that the value of letter is currently A, so the sentence will eventually look like, I really like the letter A, because it got A out of letter and it put it right there in that position. So I see the sentence, I really like the letter A on the screen. And this /n, just make sure that it has a new line afterwards. So I have my printf statement, I really like the letter A that came out of my actual variable letter. And it filled in that spot right there. And then at the end I do return 0 like the previous examples. I'm now done with this program and returning 0 as my completion. So I made a program that pretty much has a variable of type character and then shows it on the screen with the message. Let's check out how we work with int variables. So in this example it's very similar, but now we have an integer variable, and the integer variable is called num. So I said it's going to be an int. I'm going to name this variable num, and inside of num I'm going to put a value. And so inside of the variable num is equal to 164. So inside of my variable that I decided to call it num, I could call it anything I want. Inside of my variable num, I'm going to put the value of 164. So now that I have the value 164 in num, I'm going to go ahead and write a sentence to the screen. Similarly, to write the sentence in the screen, I'm going to use the printf command. And my printf command then has a sentence in double quotes, and the sentence reads as follows. I really like the number %D. Remember, %D doesn't really print on the screen. Once it sees that percent, it knows that that's a fill in the blank that's going to substitute some other value there. So it reads, I really like the number blank. And this blank is after the comma. So after the comma, I want to find what's the number, what's the actual value that goes in the blank spot. So I really like the number blank, and it grabs num, finds out what's inside of num right now, and puts that value to fill in the blank. We know that this is inside of num I have 164. So what I actually see on the screen is I really like the number 164. And that's what it shows up on my screen. I have a /n there that puts it to a new line. And so on the screen I have a nice little sentence, I really like the number 164. Then I return out and my program is done. So I return the 0 for my integer. And this winds up being an example of a program that uses the type int and then prints out a message. Let's try another one. In this case I have a float, and my float is going to be called weight. So I invented a brand new variable called weight. I can call it anything I want, but I invented the name weight for this program. So I have a variable called weight, and inside of it I'm going to put this long float number 16.478 532. Remember, 6 digits long after the decimal places is as big as you can get with a float. So I have a new float. I put in that 16.478 number, that big long number. I put it inside of my variable called weight. So I have a variable called weight, and I got that number in it. Now I have a sentence where I'm going to use a sentence to show that value on the screen. I start off with printf. Printf's the command that we do to show that on the screen. And I come in, the sentence actually says, I really like the number %f. And this %f, it serves as the fill in the blank once again. But this time it's %f instead of %d like the previous example. Whenever we have decimal places, we want to go ahead and put %f instead. So always floats wind up being %f because floats are the ones with decimal places. So this is the fill in the blank, and it says, I really like the number blank, but we're not going to see blank on the screen. It's going to fill it in, and the way it knows how to fill it in, it's going to go after the comma right here, and it sees a variable called weight. And so whatever the value of weight is, it's going to fill in that blank. So I really like the number blank. It's going to grab weight and fill in that spot. And what winds up being the value of weight, I see over here the weight is 16.478532. So the sentence actually reads, I really like the number 16.478532. And I'll see all of that on the screen. So that's an example of how you print out a float value. Let's see what's next. Now we're working with doubles. And if you remember, doubles allow you to have a longer number of digits after the decimal place. And in this case, I'm inventing a brand new variable called height. I could call it anything I want, but I decided height was the name of this variable. And inside of that height value, I put 56.478532742 and so on. So that big long number is going to be stored inside of my variable height. Now I'm going to print out my sentence. And my sentence says, I really like the number blank. And notice that I'm using %f. We're not using floats anymore, now we're doing double. But both doubles and floats uses the %f inside of the printf statement. Keep that in mind. So I really like the number %f, and this is now the blank in my statement. So I really like the number blank, and this blank is filled in by getting height and putting the value of height in that spot. And the value of height is this big 56.47 and so forth number. So what I will actually see on the screen is I really like the number 56.478 and so on. And that's what I'll see on the screen. Try it out. I'm doing a new line afterwards and returning 0 to exit my program. I got some more for you though. The next one is Boolean. Remember, Boolean requires you to have an extra include. So we're going to go at the very top, and underneath the stdio, the next one we're going to include is stdbool.h. We still start with a pound include, and then we want to include that extra library. So once we have the stdbool library in, we can use the Boolean type. And we do so by saying bool. So that's the type of the variable. And the name of the variable is winner. So I invented a brand new variable called winner. And inside of it, I can put true or false. Boolean value is always true or false. And they're represented in the code where 0 is false and 1 is true. So I have a brand new variable called winner. And I want to put into it 1, which means true. True. This is the winner, true. So now that we have this variable called winner and it's set to true, I'm going to use it in the sentence. And the sentence says, if you see a 1, I won. And then the %d. So this %d is the fill in the blank spot. And it's going to get whatever's inside the winner and put it and fill in that blank. We know the winner has a 1 in it. So it says, if you see a 1, I won, and then the 1 will show up there because it gets that 1 out of winner and it fills in that spot, similar to before. When it's a Boolean, you still want to use %d, which we used before when we were talking about integers. So both integers and Booleans uses the %d inside of a printf statement. So I have a %d to say where I want my Boolean value to show, and this 1 from the Boolean value will show right there in that spot. And then I have a new line after that, return 0, and exit my program. So now, you ready to put it all together? Let's see. So here's an example where I have all the types that we discussed so far. So at the very top, I'm including the stdio and stdbool because I'm going to have Booleans in my example. And I have a whole big mess of variables. Look at this. So I have a character called letter. Letter is my variable name and it has a y in it. I have an int called floor, so I have a variable called floor, and I have an integer value in it. I have a float called pi. I invented a variable called pi. It has a float value in it. I have a double called dimension. So again, I invented a variable called dimension, and I put a double value in it. I have a boolean called done, and I put a value inside of done. And then I have my two printf statements. So let's look at what these values are. At the very top, my variable of letter is of type char, and inside of that character, I have the letter Y. So Y is what's currently inside of my variable letter. I have a Y inside. The next one is floor. I have a variable called floor, and my floor is equal to 20, so my floor is equal to 20 inside. Variable floor has 20 inside. The next one is pi. So I have a variable called pi. I'm declaring it as type float. So my variable called pi has the number inside of 3.14. The next one is double dimension. So I have a type double, a new variable called dimension, and inside it has a double value. And that double value is this huge number, 5.68857, and so forth. So I have my dimension, and it has that big number inside, 5.68887, and so forth. And then my last one, boolean done, I have a variable called done, and it's a boolean. You can only have done true or done false. And my variable done happens to have 0. Remember, 0 means false. So done has false inside, we're not done. So let's look at the print statement. That's the next thing we're going to look at. This one's going to be a fun one. Look at this. So we start off with printf, just like we've been doing the whole time. And then we have a sentence that says, I drew a %C on floor %D and saw a sign saying %F, then %F. Remember, all the percents get taken out and substituted. So these are the fill-in-the-blank spots. So if you think of it in terms of a fill-in-the-blank sentence, this is what it would look like. I drew a blank on floor blank and saw a sign saying blank, then blank. So there's 4 blanks that we got to fill in. Now the types are denoted by what letter is after the % sign. I know that this one is %C, so in that spot there I need to have some kind of character. So I have a character that's going to fill in the first one. So I have 4 values. The first one's going to be a character. The second one has a %D. I know %Ds are always either whole numbers or booleans. So %D is the second one. I have a character and then a number or boolean. Then I have 2 %Fs. Remember, %Fs were big decimal place numbers. It could be a float, it could be a decimal, it could be a double or a float. Either one will fit. So I have a character, I have a number or boolean, and then a float or a double, float or double. Those are the 4 blanks in my sentence. I drew some kind of letter, on floor some kind of number or boolean, and saw a sign saying some kind of big decimal place number like float or double, and then another decimal place float or double. So what I do is I know I have 4 spots in my fill-in-the-blank sentence, and in order to fill in my 4 spots, I need to actually give it 4 variables, 1 for each of the blanks in my sentence, 1 for each spot. So after the comma, here's my comma at the end here, I have the 4 variables that I'm passing in. The first variable is called letter. Letter is a type character, and my first spot is a character spot, so that's perfect. I'm going to get what's inside a letter and put it in the %C that's in the sentence. The next one is floor. Floor is an integer. An integer is going to work nicely with that %D. That %D is the next one up. So I have %C is going to be letter. My %D is going to be floor. And now I've got 2 %Fs left. Those are going to be decimal values, either floats or doubles. So what are the last 2 going to be filled in with? Well, I have pi. Pi happens to be a float, so that's a perfect match. Pi is going to be the 3rd spot, and dimension is also a decimal place value. Dimension is a double, so I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, the dimension is also going to be in the sentence, and it's going to hold the 4th spot. So now I've got all 4 of them filled in. My character is letter, my number is my floor, my %F is my pi, and my last %F is my dimension. So let's read the sentence now with each one of the values filled in. I drew now this is the first blank, that's a %C. We know the %C is going to be filled in with whatever's in letter, and letter happens to be the letter Y. So y is going to be right here in this spot in the sentence. I drew a y. That's the beginning of the sentence. We figured out what goes in the fill in the blank. So I drew a y on floor %d. Remember, the %d is the second one, and the second variable that we passed in was floor. Floor happens to be an integer value of 20. So we know that floor has a 20 inside of it. So I say, I drew a y on floor 20. We got the first half of our sentence all figured out. Let's keep going. So I drew a y on floor 20 and saw a sign saying %f. Now for this %f, I'm now in the third fill in the blank in my sentence. So I find the third variable, and the third variable is pi. I know pi has 3.14 as a value. So in my sentence, I'm going to go ahead and say I saw a sign saying 314. That value is going to show up right here where this %f is. We got one more spot to fill in this sentence, and that's this last %f. And what's going in here is the value of dimension. So I have this huge value for dimension, 5.688578865. So that big long number is now going to go right here in the last %f. So I'm going to read you the whole sentence all put together. Here we go. I drew a y on floor 20 and saw a sign saying 3.14, then 5.68875788865. And then we have a \n that just means give me a new line and go to the next line. Whew, that's a mouthful. We're not done just yet. We got one more line after that. Then we have a new printf, so we're going to see a second message on the screen. And this printf is just going to show this one thing. If you see a 0, I am done, %d, and new line. So I have a sentence with another fill in the blank, and this fill in the blank is here in %d. And so it says, if you see a 0, I'm done, blank. And this blank here is filled in by what's in done. Whatever's in done is going to go right in that spot there. So done happens to be 0. So when I see a 0, I'm done, put that 0 inside of this spot. And what I actually see on the screen is, if you see a 0, I am done, !0. And that's how it appears on the screen. And once we print out the two lines, we're going to return 0, and our program is done. I know there was a lot of stuff there, so I want you to go ahead and type it on your computer and try it out. See if you can get the same exact thing to work on your machine. And try changing it out. Put different numbers, maybe try a different letter rather than Y, and see how your sentences change. You get to pick the values. You're the C programmer after all. Have fun programming.